Hi, I'm Jen Wagman, founder of the nonprofit veteran service organization GenVETS, and I'd like to welcome you to my very first podcast. I founded GenVETS to be the next generation of veteran support and veteran support services. Veterans represent the greatest part of all generations, from baby boomers to Gens X, Y, and Z, and everything in between. At GenVETS, we believe veterans and their families are the pillar of our local communities and states. GenVETS' motto is always forward. And with that, I'm going to move forward to introducing my very first guest, Miss Elizabeth Hartman. She has her bachelor's from the University of Mississippi, her master's from Penn State University in International Relations and Affairs. She's a linguist, a subpar angler, a decent hunter, and a relentless military veterans advocate. I would like to be a subpar angler, and she assured me that she is going to help me do that. She is tiny but mighty, with fire that has made me genuinely ponder whether the red in her hair is genetic or a side effect from that fire. So with that, I welcome Liz. Well, hello. It is so wonderful to have you, Liz Hartman, as my very first guest on this brand new platform of a podcast that I have launched independently, and I'm so proud that it is you. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Congratulations on launching your own independent
Yes.
for you.
Yes.
Very obvious one.
Well, it is wonderful. The first time that I met you at a conference was, very exciting for me, but it was more exciting, as you know, when we found out that we do have the same taste in shoes, and
Love a good shoe, and
it
that's a
is.
sign of a good woman.
It is. And, the fact that we recognize that immediately and that other people recognize that we recognize that was just even better. So I do appreciate that. And I appreciate all the work that you do on behalf of veterans and our transitioning service members. I think you're wonderful. I think the whole community thinks you're wonderful, and it's pretty amazing what you do. So thank you. So I think the first thing I would love to talk to you about today is something that you brought up recently in one of your posts online, and it grabbed my attention right away, and it's a benefits question. There are these questions about whether or not, and this was formed in it was phrased in the form of a poll. And there are people who question whether or not a disability, if it's paid for in its entirety with medical care, should then also be compensated financially, as because you are still disabled. This is an interesting debate. It is an interesting topic. It is one that extends beyond the veteran and military community to civilians who believe that there's excessive spending within the Veterans Administration. And so I thought, well, this would be an amazing topic that we should discuss today, because we had already set up this podcast anyway, and wow. And then there were all sorts of spicy things that came up in the comments, because I have to say, you have so many interesting people who follow you. My intent in having this discussion with you, and why I've been so looking forward to it, because I want people to understand that there are facts, and that's all I ever aim to do on my podcast, on the information I provide, because at the basis of everything, if you look at why things are the way they are, you'll get a better understanding, veterans, transitioning service members, of why the system is set up the way it is, and why there are things you are entitled to as a veteran, which first and foremost is the gratitude of your nation, the respect of your nation, always, and things that you are eligible for. Those are two very different things. And because you are entitled versus eligible, again, two different words, we need to sort of get a better understanding and parse out the difference, because there's so many things you're entitled to. Resources, there are benefits, there are programs that can help and help heal and make things better, but not everybody is entitled to monetary compensation. And your conversation started that for me, and I loved it. So that was my very long-winded way of introducing it.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on it? Are you willing, even though the poll's not over, this podcast won't come out right away?
Glad that you said there are so many parts, because when we talk about benefit, especially when we start talking about means testing, there are multiple issues we need to consider at this point. So while means testing does periodically come up, last time we all saw this scare was with an OMB proposal, I believe, it has made its way back into the forefront of argument. And for anyone who's unaware of what means testing is, it essentially means if a veteran is receiving a disability payment, if they make above a certain threshold, say if they make above X $100,000, they'll no longer be eligible to receive that payment. Up front, I'm adamantly opposed to means testing just because you're able to financially cover your malady or your injury or your ailment. It doesn't take away from the inconvenience, the quality of life impact that you experience solely because of your service. Every single veteran, if they experience something as a direct result of their military service, of some exposure in the military, should receive their disability benefits without fear that there's ever going to be a means test. But when we see this conversation come up, it's coming up for a bunch of reasons. The big one is the federal debt is ballooning. We are rapidly approaching a fiscal cliff, and everyone will acknowledge that. Whether you're red, blue, purple, green, we all know we spend too much money. So a lot of times, and you'll see this happen in a bunch of different areas, the first way people think to save money is, oh, let's just cut veteran benefits, which is a very lazy way of trying to approach debt. Veterans have already sacrificed enough. Our active duty military have already sacrificed enough. The idea that they're yet again to be the ones that bear the burden is asinine. So that's where I'll start. But what else you got?
Okay, well, you said that in a lot cleaner of a way than I would have if I were in your position, but you're classy. Listen, I am adamantly opposed to means testing as well. But I'm going to come at it from again the legislative history and the history of why we have veterans benefits and why we have this to begin with, which was, let's start with Abraham Lincoln, to care for those who have borne the battle, their widow, their orphan. Okay, we have these disability payments, and I'm going to go, give me a second because I'm going to go two places, and it's going to lead to where the big, real rift in this discussion, this debate goes, and that is with what is a disability and what constitutes a real something that our veterans should be compensated for. But first, we have that responsibility. And when you sign up to join the military, or if you were drafted, however the case may be, because we're still caring for those who were, okay, part of that signing is that when, if, how, when you should become disabled. And I don't like that word for many different reasons, even though in many different cases, that is the fact. But that's not really what this compensation package is. That is a compensation program. And I should have prepared this word better since I knew I was going to be using it. We're talking about the regulation system, for it's the code for the compensation when there is conditions, when there are disabilities, when things that happen during your military service as a result of your military service or can be related back to your military service.
I think the reason you start to see a shift in this issue, and maybe where I a little more towards center, is because all veterans are aware of situations in which the disability system has been taken advantage of.
Right.
And what I mean by that is if someone has a valid disability and it is truly connected to service, absolutely they should receive compensation for that. There's no argument. But what we start to see is that veterans will create entire Reddit threads of what they need to say, when they need to say it, how they need to move their limbs when they're in their little medical interview in order to maximize the compensation on the back end. We've all seen that. And while perhaps that started with altruistic purposes, it eventually ended up where veterans who didn't have certain maladies or certain ailments knew exactly what to say in order to maximize the compensation. I would call that fraud. Some people would call that lying. And what happens is we have a really difficult, honest conversation with one another. The facts are simple. 100% of veterans are not entitled to 100% of the current compensation for disability.
100% agree.
So when you see a large swath of the veteran population now shifting towards, oh, I'm 90%, but really I think I should be 100%. I'm 20%.
Correct.
I'm going to go to Reddit to get to 100%. What happens is the system, whether we like it or not, right? The
Yes.
system is not made to pay 100% of veterans 100% disability. So what happens at that point is people start discussing hard options.
Correct.
So what we see right now is, okay, if people are going to take advantage of the system, we're going to start discussing cutting the benefits. So while I'm adamantly opposed to means testing, and that shouldn't be an option, I can't be against means testing without also supporting reeling in this fraudulent behavior. Those to go hand in hand. Individuals who actively lie to the government on their forms need to be reprimanded. Companies that exist solely to lie on these forms to get veterans the biggest payout, they need to be shut down.
100%.
Right there on the head. We are still going to see a balloon payment structure. We're still going to have issues, and we're still going to see the discussion.
But how do you equate though? I mean, to me, these are apples and oranges. Means testing has nothing to do with the claim sharks, which I'm the next podcast is going to be for me. I mean, I just attended a hearing this past week in Maryland on their House Bill 267. And I fully support it, despite the claims that these companies are no, we have the best intentions and we want to give veterans a choice. I will give my opinion on that in the next hour, but it's not that we're trying to take choices away from veterans. I would like to educate veterans on the things that I hear these companies talking about. And you know what? I would even give some time to them to come on and discuss with me what they think that they're telling everybody. You know what? I would love to do that because I understand what they're saying. They cannot tell me that they can grease the wheels and make it easier and faster to do anything with respect to filing a claim, getting things done in a way that is better than me. There's no way to make it easier or better. Everybody does it the same way, unless you're not trained you're not trained right because the funding isn't there to get everybody trained the right way. VA doesn't treat anybody differently than anybody else. VA may have issues, but I'm sorry that, if I'm an attorney filing or a VSO, they treat me the same. They don't treat my clients any different than they do your clients because they're paying you to do it. It's just patently false. And those companies take advantage when they're putting millions of dollars into commercials at 4 a.m. for the veterans who are up dealing with the PTSD and the issues that they cannot sleep. They're tired, they're medicated, and they're watching someone tell them everything they want to hear. I am going to solve your problems. I am going to get you paid. I'm going to end the misery that you're in by dealing with those creeps at the VA who have been holding up your benefits wrongfully, illegally. Baloney. It's all baloney. You should not be paying for that.
So much to cover there, but I do see them as directly tied together. So I'll try to walk it there to make a little bit more sense. But the first thing I want to say is I can explain this claim shark issue pretty quickly. In the financial world, it's illegal to churn your client's account. What I mean by churning is doing a lot of activity that doesn't really need to be done.
Right.
If we legalize this whole private sector, if we start to monetize the veterans, those companies are going to be financially incentivized to burn and churn veterans, meaning
Amen.
to be incentivized to have a veteran come in, figure out the fastest way to get them the most money possible, and then kick them to the curb. Even if that means, one, they don't get them what they're fully entitled to, or B, they have to lie to get there, or C, if they get denied, they're going to kick you to the curb, and then the VFW is going to do your appeal anyway. Or Jennifer.
Or they pick and choose once they get the most and I've seen this happen with law firms, you get the appeals that are granted that are worth whatever to them, or the claims that are worth, and then there's some residuals, but you know what? That's not going to make me any money. So we're letting you go. We're cutting ties.
Not doing the rest. They're not going to do, and that's the problem with the burning insurance. So you can see right away how this could be all about monetization of veterans, all about financial gain. If it's all about financial gain, these companies are incentivized to get every single veteran to 100%. This is basic logic. It's how corporate America works. It's how capitalism works. That's why veterans shouldn't be monetized. But say they are. Well, then Congress is if they refuse to deal with the claim shark issue, they refuse to deal with the fraud that's running rampant in the claim world right now, then the only thing they have left to do to try to bring down the amount of money that's funneling out is means testing or some other way of cutting back veterans' benefits. Perhaps they could say 100% isn't going to equal $4,000. Maybe it's only going to equal $2,000. But until they deal with the issues on the front end, they're still going to have this spending issue.
But why is someone's means, unless I'm misunderstanding, why is the fact that my income happens to be more than someone else's income, why does that have anything to do with whether or not I should get my disability?
I'm with you 100%. It shouldn't. But that's the bull crap.
There's no censoring.
The bull argument that you start seeing, because people are trying to figure out, how do we save money? How do we
see.
Spending out of the VA? How do we get the VA to stop spending more money on veterans? And so they decide, let's implement a means test, or let's cut benefits. That's insane. That's absolutely insane. But these same people will say, oh, well, fraud is running rampant. Well, then cut the fraud off.
Well, I would cut the fraud off with some of the medical, the contract spending on the VA exams that are happening right now. You know, that there's a lot more going on in that area. The contract spending, I'm not talking about VA medical doctors or medical centers, but if we're going to take a hard look at spending and hard look at what's going on, let's take a look at that.
But the main thing I'm trying to explain to your audience here today is that if the issue is ballooning debt, if the issue is that we're racing towards the fiscal cliff, there's a million other ways that you can reel in federal debt. I fundamentally refuse to believe that the key to solving the national debt crisis is to means test a veteran who's receiving disability. And that's where you and I come back together. It shouldn't be on the table. Right. There's a bunch of other things to consider. There's a bunch of other departments in the federal government that I have no doubt they could reel in some spending and as a result not need to means test.
So back to benefits, though, I honestly believe that the main issue, you know, even means testing put aside, because it gets back to for me that this is what we have told our veterans, and it's what we promise if we're going to promise it when they go in, then we have to deliver on the back end. And if we're not going to do that, then why trust anything? If we're going to take something away, why should we trust anything? And right now,
there's ramifications that are being ignored. If this isn't dealt with delicately, I think it sends a horrific signal to the next generation of military. Why would I enlist if my benefits on the back end might be cut at any given moment? I think that's being overlooked right now. Mm-hmm. But that's why we need Rachel on this call. I am hopelessly optimistic that with the work of great organizations like the VAW, the CAV, and you, that they will be able to work with the VA to protect veterans' benefits. But it is definitely a scary time right now. And I don't think it's fair to brush aside a lot. Like you said, so many veterans are concerned about their benefits right now, rightfully so. And for many veterans, their benefits are there.
The main thing for my audience to hear, and the thing that I will be spending my time moving forward with this podcast, through my website, through lots of different, when you see me at a community event, organization, at conferences, it's education. It's education to the transitioning service members. It's education to veterans. It's education to other veteran service organizations, to state agencies, to federal agencies. And it's to be able to communicate with each other on a different level. You know, if you've heard of active listening, I need for those service providers not just to listen, but to hear, not just to hear, but to listen to what veterans are saying. It's one thing for you to create programs, to create resources, to create things for them, but you can't tell them what they need. You need to be able to listen and hear what they're saying they need as well. That being said, most of the time when I have clients, and one of the reasons I wanted GenVETS and the premise upon which I built it, I have clients who will come to me and say, and this is 9 times out of 10, Jen, they are waiting for me to die. I'm convinced of it. This is never going to be solved in my lifetime. It's already been 6, 7 years. And I used to think, I would say, of course, always no, that's not true, because most of the people that I love, that I work with, that I'm friends with, they work for VA. I worked for VA. I know that's not what is happening. The perception is that, and it feels that way because there are things that are broken within that system, but that's not how the individuals work. Most of them are veterans themselves. That being said, we need to be able to teach them that there is a different mentality that they need to have as well. And for the service providers, they need to understand that what is the veteran saying? What is the transitioning member saying that they actually need? Not here is another program, here is another resource. And then when it comes to the veterans and the transitioning service members, okay, you're telling me I want 30% for this, I want 40% for this, I want to file a claim for these 10 things, hoping that 3 or 4 or 5 of them will stick to get me to 100%. No, you have to be able to say, no, I won't file a claim that isn't well grounded, that isn't something that is able to be granted when you file it. That's what clogs the system. That's what makes it impossible to get things granted or decided.
Integrity. It is basic. It's basic integrity. The idea that people are strategically throwing 10 things against the wall to see what sticks is the problem. I love that you said that a lot of the VA workers are veterans. Those VA workers love veterans.
Yes, they do.
99.9999% of them love veterans and they love serving them and working for them. A bureaucracy is very different than the individuals that make it up. It's the bureaucracy
1000%.
that is ruining the claims process and the benefits process. And the bureaucracy is what needs fixed. These individuals that make it, that are working in it, not out yet veterans or any people. They're just as frustrated with the system as the veteran not receiving.
That could not be more true. The Board of Veterans Appeals is not the problem. The individual regional offices and listen, there are exceptions. Look, there are bad apples, bad actors in every little thing. That is it. But from where I sit, I look at the way things are structured, and I'm looking at the bottom level, the lowest level, and the way that it's structured. When you have a system where it is about quantity that is being processed and not the quality of the decisions and the claims that are being processed and reviewed, that's your number one problem. That's been a problem with VA. It is about a factory versus,
listening right now, that is what it is. If you listen to VA's goals, it's quantity based. This isn't something we're bringing to the light. It's already
they feel the pressure of the number of claims that are coming in. Now, and then we go back to the veteran.
Instead of doing your job right and taking care of them. It's insane.
Well, you've got, so these claims that are coming in that are being filed, you got the problem at sometimes it's state veteran service officers, which here's another thing. Big VA, federal VA, and I've said this before, I will continue to say it until I am without breath. The federal government, big VA, is not responsible for everything related to veterans. Our states have to do a better job of funding their veteran service, their VAs.
To a whole new thing. So you hit the nail on the head. You cannot demand everything to come from big VA.
No.
We look at South Dakota. When we look at the decisions right now to start to cut veteran service officers across South Dakota,
Oh my
and
God, please.
already massively rural area. So when you're up in Northern Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, Pennsylvania areas, it's very difficult to understand what's like to be on the ground as a veteran out west. In South Dakota, it's an hour, 2 hour plus drive to get to your nearest service. Now, if you're going to take the county veterans, or even propose to take the county veteran service officers off the table, cut their wages so that you effectively force them out of the work field because they can't afford to do the job anymore. It, that is state. That is a state level decision that will directly impact the veterans within South Dakota. And the only way that that will be fixed is if South Dakotans, people who live in South Dakota, get loud.
They have to.
They take their voice to the ballot box. Veterans can post all day on my LinkedIn, say how angry they are, and that's great. But at the end of the day, commenting on my LinkedIn does absolutely nothing. You have to vote, have to make sure that your voice is represented properly.
And if you don't, especially with people in rural America like South Dakota, if you haven't heard of Michelle Lang, if you don't know who she is, Operation Honor Rural Salute is her new organization, and I am partnering with her to be her benefits expert and work with anyone that needs help with that and to educate people about to include state service officers. I will train anybody who needs help on how to properly file a claim, what service connection is, what increased ratings are, what you need before you file a claim, what evidence you need, how to do it, how to get it. It is not rocket science. It's easy.
But we need the county service officer.
And that, again, this is something where it sounds like it is a mountain to climb. This is what I did for Paralyzed Veterans of America for years. You gather these people together in a Zoom link. It is my favorite thing to do. And the thing you can't do, I'm looking at and I'm reading about the training VA, the Office of Inspector General actually just on January 15th. I don't know if you saw it, released its findings on the training for its Veterans Benefits Department on the PACT Act and claims processing. But what they don't have is what the results are, how things went for it, because they don't have time to do it yet. It's not everything is, there's not enough information. Here's the thing about that. The way that they did it was following like what the standards are, an hour, 3 hour course, and then 12 months to follow online modules. No, 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 no. That may be what's easiest, and to put it on the talent management system. If you've ever taken a VA training on cybersecurity, or it's click through. It's easy. It's wonderful for IT, for things that you need to get out quick, for something that you as important as benefits training, and to get information that needs to be retained on how to interact with veterans, on how to really bring information out of them, how to get them engaged and involved in their own process, in themselves. That needs to be something that is interactive with the trainer.
100% in person or on a Zoom. It cannot be.
It can't be. And it's not something that you necessarily even watch a video from someone at a law firm, or there's so much you can get on YouTube, but there's a way to do it. There's another whole podcast, maybe but that's, yeah.
And that's a whole different podcast also. You can get a lot on YouTube, but just because you can get, and take it from me who has a decently large platform. You should not get all of your information. I am going to say things wrong. I am not only going to offend you sometimes, but I'm just going to say things that are wrong sometimes.
Well, and things are taken out of context. You get drawn into silly, and I don't mean, again, take with what I'm saying with a grain of context. You get drawn into things that people say and they're read out of context, and all of a sudden it's Liz Hartman said this, and oh my God, you can't do it that way.
Subject matter expert. Need to be going to the accredited attorney, going to the VSOs, you need to be going to the CVSOs, the Jennifers, shouting them all out. Go see the people who it's their job because
It
chances are
is.
paid for it. They're probably good at it.
Listen, and not for nothing, but my trainings, I have Adele, I have Taylor Swift, I have all kinds of things that you don't want. And so you're going to listen anyway because
There
you
you
stand
go.
up there looking at me like, what the hell is that woman doing? You never know what you're going to get. You never know.
You can't.
Life's
That's
a box of chocolates. That's what it is.
we started with bean testing and we made it to box chocolates and Adele. So if someone is still listening and they're wondering what they can do, I would say
Yes.
you can do one of two things. You can contact a representative or you can join the VFW. And you're probably like, why? Like, when the VFW or the DAV or when the American Legion testifies in front of Congress, they're not just testifying for fun. They're testifying to show X million people will vote against you and vote you out of your comfortable Senate seat if you do not protect veterans' benefits. And so while you might think your membership isn't valuable, au contraire, it's incredibly valuable to these organizations because you become one more vote. You're symbolizing a vote as a member. So that's threatening to them. They don't want to upset millions of members, millions of voters. So if you're trying to protect your benefits and you're afraid that this could happen and that could be rolled back one day, one way or another, go join an organization that is actively lobbying.
That is a phenomenal point. And it's actually one that's not made enough. It's not one that I make enough because people are actually not joining the Legion or VFW because they think it's old school. It's yesterday. They are not into wearing the hats and the uniforms. But right there, you have it.
Don't
It's
gotta wear a hat for the VFW to fight for you. And I don't qualify for VFW membership. I didn't deploy. I never saw combat. But gosh, I'm still so happy they do what they do to fight for themselves.
well, you have a big voice. You have a mind. You're such a teeny tiny person. When I describe you, I can't, I'm like, she's so tiny. She's so tiny, and yet she's so damn loud. It's amazing. You bring out a lot that needs to be said, and this is the kind of conversation that needs to be ignited. And I hope that people who are listening will either email, write in, and pose questions that you would like to ask of Liz, that you would like to ask of me. We will answer them. We will come back on and we will talk about it. We'll talk about shoes. We'll talk about anything that you want, because this is where these sorts of conversations and the dialogue has to happen. And when you don't understand something you read online, when you don't understand something that happens, you're not going to read it on my LinkedIn, because I don't have the following she does. But you might read something I write on there. I just try and like read and have fun with it. But honestly, there's a lot of misinformation that does well, and it's interesting because if it's misinformation, it's still information. You find out what other people what they think and what is out there and what we need to address. And that's part of what I'm trying to do. If you're talking about it, if people think that, it needs to be corrected. And so that's really what my job is. And I'd like to be doing this with Liz and say, hey, come back on because
Well,
wasn't that crazy what was said? I can't wait to find out what the results of the poll are.
the first
Um,
thing and as the first version of the question, 10% were against or were for means testing, which is a huge 10% support means testing. But then as I worded it differently, I'm up to 13% on the second wording of it. So depending upon that tells me, depending upon how a politician pitches it,
yes,
words the policy, there's room to sway the population. Very
interesting. Do you have any aspirations of running for office ever?
interesting.
No.
I think I would just be fired way too quickly. And I genuinely enjoy causing havoc in whatever way I want to cause havoc. I'm having to worry about. I hold myself accountable to veterans. And for instance, a lot of times I might support a conservative policymaker. A lot of times I might support a liberal policymaker. I'm going to support the policymaker that I think best works for veterans. And I don't want to be bound by a party.
I
I
love
refuse
it.
to be tied to a party. And so that's why you see me not running for office for me. Maybe that
Okay.
changes one day where politics isn't so partisan. But until that day, I'm just loyal.
Well, at least when we can have civil discourse again, because right now,
Not right now.
not right now. I mean, it's truly it's
Not
sad
right.
because there was a time, but I don't feel like we're in that right now. And that's why veterans are scared about their benefits too. But I think the best thing that we could do, and maybe how I would end this tonight is, or this afternoon, depending on when you're listening to it, this morning, is to really encourage everybody who is feeling that way and who's feeling nervous. If you want to reach out, you can reach out to me at genw at genvets.org, or find Liz.
I
Um,
need to hear.
and, yep, and ask questions and be honest in what you're asking and be sincere, and I will answer, Liz will answer, and if you want to pose a question for us to address, we will, because getting the right answer out and being truthful and honest. And if you have a question for VA, for state VA, for any of the service organizations, it may not be something that's easy for you to bring as an individual, but it is something that we can bring and that we can get answers for you together. I am never going to throw mud at another service organization or at an agency, but what I will do is get an answer one way or another. I will hold others accountable.
Jennifer, you can be the good one. That's why you got me. I might throw some mud while I'm getting an answer, just so everybody knows.
I have no problem holding accountability, like whatsoever. But I'm going to do the same for veterans and for service. Everybody is going to be held accountable because we all have to be responsible to make this thing work the right way. It's the only way we're all going to, get everybody the help that they need. There are 45,000 veteran service organizations.
So
You
many.
know, it's too many. They can't all be doing the same thing, and they can't all. It is.
My
It's a big
feeling
business.
5,000 organizations.
What did you say? I can't.
A whole nother podcast. My feelings about 45,000 organizations doing the same thing.
Right. And that's the thing. I've been saying, I harp on this almost every episode. It is something that Americans need to be good consumers. They need to be educated about where they're giving the money, where they're donating the money, and understand that not everyone is created equal. Not everyone is as altruistic as the other. I have learned that the hard way. And while I don't want to throw shade or put anyone down, you will see me supporting the ones vigorously that I think are doing the right thing and partnering. We partner together. We
Yeah.
don't duplicate efforts, but we do work together and lift each other up because we are all in for the same reason, and that is to help veterans and to help transitioning service members, because that's the goal. That's there really is only one thing that matters, and that's that. Thank you for coming on and being number one. I just love you, and I
Love you
look
too.
forward to talking to you again soon. All right.
Take care.
Great. Thanks. Have a good night. Bye.